The first round of the 2024 NFL Draft is expected to be dominated by offensive players. However, that does not mean there aren't talented players on the defensive side of the ball. In this video, Will and Peter delve into their top 10 players from the front 7 of the defense. If you could be so kind, please drop a like and subscribe on the video.
Yep, cool. Cool. And number 10, also another linebacker, Junior Colson, Michigan Wolverine, 6'3", 247. This guy's more of like a traditional linebacker. He's got good athleticism. You can kind of play him in a bunch of different positions as well. He's well coached. Leaving in his junior year, but he was around Jim Harbaugh, so I think he still has a lot to learn. So I'd actually say this guy's ceiling is potentially higher, but you need to get into the right fit in terms of a scheme and a system.
Yeah,
because when people leave as juniors, there's still a lot of learning that they have to do. And to go from that straight to NFL football, defenses are more complicated, offenses are more complicated, and the talent around the field is a lot more complicated. So he needs to land in the right fit. And I don't think he's going to start in his first season. I think he's going to sit and learn, but he's someone that can come in later on and then take over the banner.
Yeah, and even I think with Junior Colson, he's one of the top defense players in the draft. Very great against the run, and some zone concept. I think he might have to develop some of his coverage weaknesses. But when it comes to the run game, he's outstanding playing the mic, being able to diagnose, run fades, go hunt for the running back, and being an influential player for the Chargers. And I think with the link to Jim Harbaugh, if he's there in the second round or third, Jim Harbaugh, the coach, didn't start finding it hard to pass him up, because I think they're gonna. Harbaugh will find it very hard to pass him up, because I think in this draft they're gonna try and target some Michigan guys. If Harbaugh makes it to the draft and doesn't draft a second Michigan player, that's a bit alarming, because you're a head coach now. You would think you bring some of your boys that are eligible, that you build that championship team that you went to battle and won a championship with, to help you try and win the Super Bowl.
Peyton Wilson. Now this guy's kind of like got like a lot of attention from like a lot of different teams, because they just like his sort of demeanor. Like he's a sound player across the board, and he's got insane length. Like he's fairly tall. I'm just getting up like his frame, but I think you're looking at around 6'5". You know what I mean? 6'5". He can move a lot better than you think he can. And he's currently playing at 233 pounds. And I think what a lot of people like is with that kind of height, well, 6'4" if you go NFL Combine. You know how colleges be. They'll put some extra padding in them socks on them pro days to make that guy a bit taller. But you look at a Combine, 6'4", 233. But what they like about it is potential versatility. These taller linebackers have the potential, like if they've got a little bit of force, a little bit of strength, you could use them as an edge rusher, as an extra body on like a blitz. But I think they're looking at Peyton Wilson as a complete linebacker, in that they expect him to be able to stop the run. They expect him to be able to cover tight ends, and be a part of that passing defense. And they also expect him to be able to rush the passer when he needs to. Whether or not he's productive in all those areas, that is yet to be seen, but he's got all the physical tools in place. He's a senior as well in NC State, so he's seen a lot of football. He's a captain of that team. So they know that, with linebackers, if you see a lot of football, it kind of helps your instincts. You're not going to bite. Like a lot of these young linebackers that go to college and come out really quickly, they still haven't seen a lot of football. They've gone from high school, played 2-3 years in college, and they're out. The thing about that is there's a lot of concepts. There's a lot of different types of offenses they haven't seen. Peyton Wilson has seen a lot. And he's not going to duck and dive. He's not going to make errors. And that's sometimes you need someone with that kind of veteran leadership on your team. I think if people do draft him, and like I said, he's no slouch. He's got all the physical traits, 4.43 speed at 6'4". Like, he can run. He's someone that you can bring in and is going to be able to start for your offense straight away. Who's the 49ers linebacker, the captain. I can't remember his
Fred
name.
Warner.
Frank Warner. Yeah. So
Fred Warner.
I think this is what they're trying to aim for here. You know, they're trying to sort of bring in a guy that can match that MO. You know, if you look at Fred Warner, 6'3", 230. You look at Peyton Wilson, 6'4", 230. Fred Warner can run, so can Peyton Wilson. This is the
Yeah.
prototype, and I think he's probably going to go a lot higher than most people think. And I think he's going to be a good player because if you watch the tape, he can play. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that rises to the occasion and plays well in the league.
Yeah, I agree. Peyton Wilson can certainly play. Now the question is he gonna go in the first round? Someone's gonna fall in love with him, and if they love him enough, they might trade up to get him in the first round. He has all the skills, the traits I need. The skills and traits for an elite for a good linebacker. It all depends on how he develops within the league. Like you said, you suggested the Fred Warner route. He might not be as athletic as Fred Warner was, but he has the IQ to be able to play off the charts. So I think Peyton Wilson is going to be a good addition to our NFL team. And defensive coaches will love to have a player like that, a player that you can train him over high IQ. Yeah, so I believe that Peyton Wilson will be one of the good linebackers in the league because he has an all-round game. Like when I watch his tape, he's covered, he stopped the run, rushed the passer. So he has ideal skill sets in all three different. Uh, um, he has an ideal skills. He has a good enough skill set to be able to play and come in. I think projection him, he's probably gonna go to a team and be their one starting Mike, like you alluded with Fred Warner. And should be able to get to a team, develop, and maybe call plays. So in any other draft, he might go in the first round, but in this draft, offensive players, I think he might slip to the second or even the third. So we see the first linebacker being taken off the board. So yeah, so for our eighth ranked player in this top seven front seven top 10 series, we've got Jared Verse, defensive tackle, no, edge, outside linebacker from Florida State FSU Seminoles. This is another outstanding defensive player, definitely gonna go in the first round. There was talk that if he came out last year, he would have been a first rounder. So kudos to him and tremendous to him for maintaining his draft status. He's one of those edge guys that is very heavy hands. He's got a lot of power. He does a lot of bull rush moves. He doesn't have the natural bend ability that some of the edge players in this draft, like Latu, Robinson, and Dallas Turner have. But he gets to the quarterback, power rush. He can swim move as well. He might not be a bendy guy coming off the bend, but he has tremendous ability to use his hands, and he's got such a heavy hands that there's a time whereby he's just um, bull rushing left tackles. There was one on tape. There was one clip whereby he bull rushed the offensive lineman into the lap of the quarterback, and when you can do that, you have a place in the NFL because hey, it does happen sometimes. There's plenty of times you see edge guys push bull rush. There's nothing a quarterback hates than an offensive lineman being pushed back all the way to his lap. Because quarterbacks get pissed and they're telling them, they'll be like, you must as well sit down. You must as well not come on the field. How you like a grown man to push you all the way back? But hey, that's
Right.
what happens in the NFL game sometimes. It's just strength upon strength. Um,
Right into those throwing lanes. Yeah, they hate that. Like I'd rather, like I said, I'd rather you just break through and then I've got to move or take the sack. But rather than you messing up my lane for to throw, it's not something I like. And I don't think coaches like that easily either. I think this guy, like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of Childverse, but I think he does have a place in this draft, and he'll probably go a lot higher than you expect. Only because he's a surefire guy. Like I said, 6'4", 260. You're probably gonna get what 7 to 8 plus sacks a year at least off this dude. So he's gonna be
he
consistent.
might get 10 depending on
Might
how good
get
your
10,
front seven is.
depending on how good you
Um,
are as a unit. So
exactly. I mean, I don't see him as you know, getting high level sack production. The 15 to the 20 between the 15 and 20 plus sack range. But
Mm.
he could give you a good, 10 to 12 sacks a year,
Yep.
sort of like that lower 8 to 12 sack range as a pass rusher. It all depends on how he develops. I don't think he'll be an alpha of a pass rushing duo in the NFL.
Mm.
Certainly a compliment, but by a heck of a compliment. It's just that his hands he's so strong and has such powerful hands that sometimes when he
Number 7, we're looking at Byron Murphy. All right. This is another one of those like interior defensive line. Um, he's good. He's good. Byron Murphy the second, also another Longhorn. 6'1", 308. So he's very stout, not necessarily a tall guy, but he's decent. I think he kind of does everything well. He's a sound guy, and I think what you find with a lot of the guys who are perhaps undersized is they have to work a little bit harder to get the attention. They've got to make sure that they're putting in more work because they don't necessarily have the physical tools there. But because he's a little bit shorter, he's got a lower center of gravity. He's got good feet for his weight, not necessarily his height, good feet for his weight. 6'1", 308. He's more prototypical. In fact, I kind of like this guy a little bit more than Travondre because he's got a little bit more wiggle, meaning he can pursue runs if things get out of hand. So yeah, no, I can definitely see him sort of dropping down to maybe play at around 290, 280 and sort of see what he can do. But DeSoto, Texas as well. So he's got that pedigree. He's always been around good football. He's always gone up against really good competition. This guy's like a safe pick, especially as a defensive tackle. This is more of like a traditional pick, someone you can pick to go on the inside, can play on potentially different schemes as well, like a 4-3. Like I said, he's not going to be able to pass rush the QB, but he's definitely going to be disruptive. And he could be very good at stopping the run too, because like I said, he's got a little bit more wiggle. If things get out of hand, or things get outside of the pocket, outside of the tackle, he can make those plays if he needs to. But yeah, no, I think this guy is probably going to be a late first round, if not early second round, and he's going to be really good value for whoever picks him up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at those two, Byron Murphy and
Tavondre Sweat.
Kavondra Sweat. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I was trying to figure out the name. They were excellent playing the defensive tackle position together at the University of Texas. It would have been great if they can carry out the NFL careers by playing for the same organization. Um, uh, so Byron Murphy, as a prospect, he has a bit more pass rush than Tavondre for me.
Mm.
But because the size and Tavondre has the hand skills, so you hope that he can develop the pass rush aspect of his game. But Byron Murphy's more like the pass rusher out of the two. Um, and I like he's explosive. Byron Murphy has explosiveness on the interior in terms of pass rush, let's move in the pocket. So he has those type of intangibles um, to be able to push the pocket and do some of those things. And I think he's a tremendous prospect. I like his size. I'm just trying to figure out how much he weighed at the combine. Um, I think he was like 6'1".
Yeah, I've got him. So I'm looking at ESPN 6'1", 308.
Okay, so he's another one that is he will be very good on the inside in terms of leverages. I think what sometimes in the NFL cycles they underestimate is that when someone comes in and they're a bit on the 6'1", 6 feet as a defensive tackle, they tend to underrate them because they don't necessarily have the 6'3", 6'4", 6'6" size. But if anything, I don't prove that those short guys win the leverage game because they get underneath the
Mm.
offensive tackles and the guards and be able to push their pad level low and be able to jack them off the field via a bull rush or swim move or club or anything like that. So he definitely will be a good player in terms of like leverage and things like that. So he's definitely gonna go in the first round. Do it, and I also think that some in a case of being one of those defensive guys that in other drafts might not be run, but in this draft, he probably going in the first round.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I always say, shorter levers move a lot faster. So it's sometimes it's a weakness, but it can be. I mean, if you look, I mean, I wouldn't put this guy on the edge, and there's a reason why they never lined up
Excellent
Aaron
call.
Donald outside wide because you need range, you need length for that.
Mm-hmm.
But shorter levers move a lot faster, and I think that's the logic here. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Almost like a running back. Very rarely do you see tall running backs be successful. They need to be a little bit stouter, a little bit more stocky. And it's very hard to find guys that are on the taller range that can perform well. Chris Jones for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's an anomaly. That guy's an alien. You know, he's tall, but he has really good leverage points. That type of skill
Yep.
set is really hard to find. You know, there, like I said, I think we've gone over a few of those guys earlier on, you know, but they're needles in a haystack, very rare to find. These shorter guys tend to have that already built into them, so they can come in and then they can sort of make plays early on. So yeah, one. Okay, so working through this list, we have now reached number 6, Travondre Sweat. This guy is huge. You know, I had to take like a double
Mm-hmm.
take. 6'4", 360. So he's at the later end of the 300s. You know, um, like this guy's kind of like a throwback. In that he's the guy that's not necessarily gonna get upfield, but he can be like a vacuum. Like he is gonna demand like your center, your guards are gonna get that work. Because he can get people moving just by leaning on them. Like he can potentially be very disruptive. He's played as of course playing for the Longhorns. He's played against good talent. The tape is there, and from one thing I'm seeing consistently is he is disruptive. Now, that might not necessarily carry on to the NFL because the guards and the centers are the best in their field. So it's not going to be as easy. You know, you might be able to do this against Bowling Greens. You know what I mean? Like Boston College. You're not going to be able to do this in the NFL against some of the guards you're going to be coming up against, you know? But still, like I think 6'4", 360, he can probably lose a little bit of weight, get down to like 320 and still be productive. Um, just like you said, I think we were talking about it pre-show, Pete. This is something that he might have like weight incentives in his contract as the season goes
Absolutely.
to try and sort of make sure that, you know, if you get to this weight, you'll be a lot better, you'll be a lot healthier, and you less risk of injury as well. He's gonna find out that, you know, most players when they go to the league, they actually lose a bit of weight, you know, because they don't need to carry as
Mm-hmm.
much on because they realize, hey, I'm much better when I'm more mobile, more agile, and injury free. It's not necessarily about me being heavy. Sometimes players will get heavy to try and impress scouts, you know, to show that they've got like a big body, big frame, and then they lose weight in the league. I think this guy is one of the guys that's going to come in. Like I said, if you're playing a 3-4, this is the type of guy you're going to draft. He's going to fit your scheme. But the way the current NFL is, with guys like Chris Jones and Aaron Donald used as the blueprint, there's not really a lot of room for these types of interior linemen unless it's scheme specific and this is what you run. So I reckon this kind of lets us know which teams he's going to go to. You know, if you're running, like I said, if you're running a 3-4 or you're defensive tackle heavy and you use those guys to stuff the run, that kind of lets you know that yeah, he's probably going to go there. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, I haven't really got a lot to say. I think he's probably gonna go in the first round. I mean, for him to get into the second round, I think that's a really good value for any team. But I don't think that's gonna happen because, like I said, out of those 3-4 defenses, he is textbook what they need. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I can see him going there.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it too. Um, I can see it too. Um, but my only caveat to Vontae Sweat is that yes, he's got a body, yes, he's got the hands, and he can be fundamentally sound. My biggest thing is the weight. Is he going to be disciplined enough to lose more weight and come an acceptable date range? You know, is he going to lose more weight? Because But the funny thing is that he can move that 360 pounds very well. That's the thing. Like you said a word earlier, when you was talking about pliability, Tom Brady's favorite word.
Hmm.
You were talking about how he pliability, and it's just the way he moves. And I think the fact that he's 360, even if it was dropped to, if it was to lose 20 pounds and come down to 320, that still makes him a tremendous big body guy to be a nose tackle, um, for whichever team drafts him. It certainly an area of his game that he might need development coming into the league might be pressure up the middle, improving on his pass rush push and things. But when it comes to the run, he's actually a very good run stopper, one of the best in this draft class. Um, wouldn't be surprised if he went into the first round. Would I put my money on it? No, I don't think so because a lot of teams are not spending first round picks on interior defensive linemen. That primarily is a run stopper first, and the pass rush might come later on in his career, depending on how he depend depending on how he performs. So yeah, I think Savondre is worthy to be our sixth best defensive player in this draft, and I think any team that you cannot overlook him because of his size and weight, and thinking he's just a run stopper, that might not necessarily be true. I think he can be more than just being a run stopper.
Yeah, no. But yeah, definitely needs to sort of see if he can drop down to put things in perspective. Eagles Jordan Davis, 6'6". It's our guy. He's 336 at 6'6". This guy's 6'4", 362. So he can definitely go down. Like I said, get down to 320, maybe even 310. I think 290 for him is gonna be too much work. That's something probably in
Yep,
year 2 or 3 he can try and aim for. But for now, I think
bro,
trying to get to 310.
that's putting him on starving, man. Come on now, he got to eat. He's in the NFL.
I think he spent a few too many at Texas Longhorn buffet.
Nah, you ain't eating well to your
Hey,
NFL
bro,
food, boy.
I'm seeing him back in high school, man. He wasn't that like he was beefy, but man, he definitely went like because you know how they have the all inclusive. Like they put the right type of food on the buffet, but they make sure like you know what I mean. Like I think he took a few more helpings than he needed to, but yeah, like that's all I'm saying there. But anyway, cool. We're gonna end it there. Then we're gonna go to the next guy, number 5. This is kind of like the same the same type of player, but now we're talking interior defensive line, and that's Chris Jenkins from Michigan Wolverine. Coached by Jim Harbaugh. You know what you're getting. Like this is fundamentals. He's gonna play within the scheme. He's gonna produce. He's not gonna mess up a play, but then he's not gonna break plays. This is someone that's going to be able to start day one, 6'3", 305 pounds, built in the mold of your traditional interior defensive lineman in that they're going to absorb double teams, incredibly strong. He can move the pocket upfield. But if you're looking for a little bit of pizzazz, if you're looking for a little bit of wiggle, this isn't what he's going to bring to the table. Which is probably why, like I said, he's a Michigan product, Harbaugh product. He plays within the system. If you're gonna run like a 3-4, or like an interior defensive line heavy defense, this is someone that you can draft, and he's a starter day one on your team. If he's not, you better have someone real good ahead of him because heading into year 2 and 3, he's definitely going to be the de facto starter. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about Chris Jenkins. I don't think he's going to get drafted too high in the first round because there's no like wow here necessarily. But I think he's a surefire first round pick, most likely in the mid to late rounds. One of these defensive head coach run teams is probably gonna bring him in to add some depth. Chicago they've only got one pick in the first round, or do they have
They've got
multiple picks?
two. They've got a first and they've got two in the top 10, the first overall and the ninth overall.
Okay, so yeah, they might. I don't think they'll give that one. I think they want the second overall pick. They want to stay well with the second pick in the first round. They probably want to stay in that top 10 range so they can still get a stud. But I see them going defense because offensively they're loaded right now, unless they're taking an offensive lineman, which I think they're going to try and focus more on defense and making sure they've got their guy there. But yeah, Chris Jenkins, solid, nothing crazy, surefire starter, can't go wrong. You know, this guy's a Land Rover. You know what I mean? You know what you're getting. It's going to run for several years, no problems, no issues, and you can trade him and sell him. He's still going to be good. You know what I mean? So, good investment for a team.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think Chris Jenkins will be one of the best interior defensive linemen in this draft. Very strong player, very good and accurate and strong against the against the run. Um, he's an excellent defensive tackle. He can push the pocket. His dad was former NFL player Chris Jenkins. So his dad actually played in the NFL, so he does have NFL bloodlines. Um, and he'll contribute to a team. I see him going late first round, early second round of the draft. Um, in terms of his skill set and what he brings to a team, he's got a body. And he can play in a 3-4 defense, any position, 0 technique, 3 technique, 5 technique. He can play all those positions, and he can be a very productive member of a team. So I really like Chris Jenkins. His tenacity when playing and pushing the pocket. He's a type of he could be a type of defensive lineman in the NFL that has huge respect across the teams that he plays for because he plays hard and he tries to go about and do his job. So yeah, so he's gonna be one of those players that come into the league and do awesome. So we really like Chris Jenkins and what he showed on tape. He was outstanding this year for Michigan. He was one of the key players for the defenses on the defensive line that enabled Michigan to have a good defense and to make the national title run. So he was part of the group that the old saying goes, defense wins championships. Or so he's gonna be he was one of the stalwarts that helped Michigan win that championship because he was phenomenal for Michigan, and he probably will be sorely missed by that program. But onto the NFL, and he most likely will go in the second round or later part of the first round, like I said. But a very gifted and a very good player.
Okay. All right. So this is number 4. Number 4. Dallas Turner, Alabama, Crimson Tide. You know, there had to be someone from Alabama, right? In terms like I'm not
There had to
too
be. There
I,
had to be.
I'm not too hyped up on Dallas Turner necessarily as a prospect, but one thing Alabama do well is when you get an Alabama product, you know, it's kind of like buying a Toyota. You know it's gonna run. You know you're gonna have parts available. You know it's the engine's gonna be consistent. You know it's well coached. You know the fundamentals are there. And that's my thoughts on that Dallas Turner. You can take, I mean, this guy is not necessarily going to change life potentially, but he's someone you can bring in. He's going to start 6'4", 242. You know, I'd probably say as an edge rusher, maybe a little bit undersized, but that's okay because I think he's probably going to be moved to linebacker, depending on how much he can absorb an offense. So I think even though you can bring him in as an edge rusher, I think he is able to play linebacker. He's a lot faster than you think. Those Florida boys tend to be Fort Lauderdale, Florida, so you know he's got feet. You know he can run. So I think he's gonna make a defense happy. But like I said, I'm not too necessarily high up. But I think, like I said, he's you can bring him in day one. He can start on your defense. Might not even need to share reps. He might be straight away plug and play. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Dallas, man. Pete, man, what are you saying?
Yeah, I mean Dallas Turner, one of the top edge guys in this draft. I think within the last Dallas within the draft community, a lot of aspects rate Dallas Turner ahead as the top edge in this group. Certainly not for us. But I see why they rate him as a top edge guy because he's the most athletic edge rusher in this draft class. And I think it's more about ceiling and potential because he hasn't even scratched the surface of what he's meant to do as a linebacker. I mean, he tested very well at combine his pro there, has a lot of athletic traits, has all what you look for in an edge. When we allude to him being a linebacker, his best fit will be in a 3-4 defense when it's a stand-up linebacker on the edge and rush from the edge, standing up, not in a 2-point stance, but in the sort of the stand-up position, and that's where he'll probably excel at his best. And I think that's why a lot of mock drafters mock him into the eighth overall pick by the Falcons because Raheem Morris is most likely bringing over a 3-4 defense to the Atlanta Falcons, and they need an edge rusher, and Dallas Turner would be a good fit. And Raheem Morris dropped some of his edge guys into coverage, and because of his athletic traits, he'll be perfect into dropping into coverage on some of those plays. Like primarily they rush the passer, but in the defense sometimes they'll drop the edge guys to cover the flats and to cover some of the zone curls or hook zone responsibilities within the defense. So he's a guy that's highly rated. In the NFL, production will have to go up based on his athletic traits, but I believe he has the attitude, the mental fortitude to do it. And when you come from Alabama, when you come from Nick Saban, the fundamentals are already there because Saban will not play you until you can play fundamentals. Believe that. So he comes into the NFL with the Alabama bloodlines, the Alabama pedigree, and he'll be the next in series of Alabama linebackers that are projected to do very well in this league. So I do like Dallas Turner. He is one of the best defensive players in the draft, but his where he goes will largely determine how successful he can be in the National Football League, especially with his athletic traits that a coach can mold into him becoming a very good NFL pass rusher.
Yeah, like you said, man, Toyota, like you know what you're getting. It's gonna work, it's gonna run, it's gonna be in your garage for a very long time, and you're not gonna get any problems. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
economical, it produces, gets you where you need to go. So I think it's a safe pick. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a pick that's gonna transcend his position, but it's a safe pick, and you know, like you can't go wrong. That's why in my prediction, he's probably gonna go like in the mid teens most likely, because like I said, it's a safe pick. Those top 10 guys, they're there to transform a team, so they've got to bring something else to the table. But can't go wrong with Dallas Turner. I can't really fault a team for for picking him. So yeah, one. All right, number three. This is our third best player in the draft. It's exciting. You know, Chop Robinson, Penn State, Nittany Lions, Chop Robinson. I couldn't resist the second chop. This guy's explosive. Like this
He is
guy is
explosive.
explosive.
He is explosive. Chop Robinson and number three best defensive player or defensive prospect in this draft. For me,
Ooh.
he's my favorite. He's like tied on my favorite players in this draft. There's another guy that is one of my favorites. My favorite right now is Chop Robinson. And it's about one thing. It's about his get off. He has the fastest get off amongst all the edge rushers in this draft.
Mhm.
When Chop Robinson gets on the field and he's like this year he has some injury issues that contributed to him, and he's more of a projection guy than a production guy because if you check his sacks numbers, they are not wild to you, but he has all the athletic traits, all the natural skill, all the ability as a football player, as an edge player in this draft. That first step quickness is something you can't teach.
Yep.
No matter how good of an athlete you are, first step quickness is normally gifted to gifted edge rushers, and when they have that and you can use it to your advantage, it makes you devastating and explosive. An NFL player who's a sure future Hall of Famer that lived off first step get off, or players with first step quickness that have become NFL Hall of Famers, Derek Thomas to Von Miller, they got sacks just from their get off because they were fast off the ball that the offensive tackle can't even see them. By the time you reach your hand, he's bending around the edge.
Yep.
And I think Chop is not a perfect prospect, I would say, but like his explosiveness, if he gets a really good edge coach that is very good at teaching NFL pass rushing skills and tools to to Chop Robinson, By his sophomore year, we are talking about him as a Pro Bowl or Pro type of player. He's very reminiscent of Micah Parsons, but he has got more quickness than Micah coming off the edge. I think we didn't know Micah could rush off the edge until you go to the Cowboys and they put him on the edge and he started dominating tackles and getting sacks. Chop could do that same and more because he has that unique first step quickness. I love Chop Robinson's get off. When Michigan played Penn State, after the first 3 plays, they run the ball to the end of the game because Harbaugh was like, I'm not gonna have this guy kill our offense right now, kill JJ McCarthy. So one of the reasons why McCarthy didn't throw the football against Penn State was Chop Robinson.
You know, in those types of games that the tackles out there are like, hey, coach, man, this game's gonna hurt my draft stock. Like after the first series, he was like, yo, coach, we're gonna win this chip this year. Help my draft stock out. Let's run the ball this game because this guy's gonna kill me. I opened up this guy's tape, and I did. You know, I'm always enamored by players that don't look like they're playing their position because of the way their body moves. You sometimes think, is this a linebacker? You know what I mean? The way he's able to move his hips, he's exploding out. I'm telling you, the left tackle hasn't even taken a read step. And he's already on his shoulder. Kung Fu hands ready. And I'm like, that's really impressive to do. And not everyone has this. His acceleration and burst is intense. And at 6'3", 250, he has the strength to move people if he needs to. You know, that's very rare. You can, and the thing is, like, you can stand him up. You know, that's a lot like a linebacker. So you know how we talked about Latu at 6'5", you know, maybe just like you said, Pete, he's more of a pure edge rusher. This is someone that you can stand up. So you can, just like Von Miller. In fact, that's a good comp. I would say, but I was kind of thinking Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons at 6'4" is a little bit longer, a little bit more rangy. This guy's got more in common with Von Miller in that you can stand him up and you can move him around. So this isn't like a guy that's gonna come from the same direction. You can have him, you can move him around, you can see the weaknesses on a defense. I think whoever drafts this guy, he's going to have a really good rookie season because he's definitely going to eat because he's a mismatch waiting to happen. If you put a running back or a tight end on this guy, it's a mismatch waiting to happen. Like he can rush from the backfield, he can rush from outside center, from a free tech. Like he can do different things, and especially with how important depth and versatility is, he can come in and start straight away for your defense because you can put him around. You know, so I agree. You know what, Pete? Going through these rankings, I think like Chop right now is only number 2 and would probably is only number 3 and would be number 2 if Latu or a player of his caliber wasn't there. Chop is number 2 in my book. You know what I mean? Like in terms of what he can do, like he can transform a defense. I don't know. Like I said, this is another guy where I don't see him being available after the top 15. And a team might move up. I'm not saying move up, but they're gonna try and take him straight away.
Absolutely. I mean, the only thing about Chop, like when he listens to draft rumors in the NFL circles, is the fact that his production wasn't as it was expected. He only had 4 sacks on the year, but when he turned on the tape, his pressure rate and the amount of times he was getting into the backfield, and it's about putting this all of it together. And he's your typical. He's what a lot of scouts and analysts would rate as a boom or bust prospect. If he had the same amount of sacks as Latu, Chop Robinson was probably the first defensive player drafted because he doesn't quite have the production yet. He had some injury issues this year, but the thing is, he has a lot of potential, and I bet there are some edge guys or linebacker coaches in teams that are pounding the table and telling their coach, their GMs, get me this guy. I'll turn him into a monster. The tools he's got, I will turn him. Like, there's no coach in the NFL that's ever said, I can't coach this guy. When they see traits like this, coaches live for traits and things that they can't naturally teach you. And that's what Chop Robinson has got. And it's amongst the draft community, he's not someone that's rated to go highly in the top 15. He's gonna slip, but I just have a feeling that if Chop slips, he's probably going to a better team. And it's actually a better fit for him to go into the late teens because you're going to a team with good coaches that can turn you loose. I mean, if he's that 27, and Jazan Newton is not gone yet, my Cardinals are swooping him up. Even Howie I might take Chop if
Yeah,
Chop is
we
there
need
at
them
22
linebackers. I think he's eyeing up this whole linebacking group, in
because
terms of what he wants. This is the
Chop's
type of
got it,
guy.
man. Like when you watch his highlights, offensive tackles. Like by the time he goes round, they haven't even taken a step, and my guys round the corner and bending, and they're
What are they
can
gonna
you give
do?
me a minute?
Can we run the ball, coach, please? I don't want to put this film out.
I just watched the highlight right against Penn State, like one of the first series against JJ McCarthy. I mean, he was round the corner so fast. McCarthy did not even complete his 3-step drop, and Penn Robinson was there, and like he did not even get set, and he's there.
Yeah, they're like, hey, yo, our tackle's getting smoked out there, man. We need to protect him. That draft stock needs to be protected. But in all respect, like I said, I think this guy's going to make a defensive coordinator very happy. Just like you said, Pete, defensive coordinators live for players like this because they've got a position ready for him. You know that bobcat position sometimes where they have a guy there that's roaming, that can attack. It's hard to find defensive players, linebackers or edge rushers that can be lined up in a 3 technique, stand them up and can move them around. So when you get a guy like this, you're salivating because this is like a new facet of your defense you can open up, you know? So yeah, no, Chop Robinson, number 3. One. So yeah, this is leading us to our next guy. Sorry if we butcher the name once again. Laiatu Lato. Laiatu Lato. Laiatu Latu.
Latu, Latu.
Latu.
Yeah.
UCLA Bruin.
Latu, UCLA Bruin, second best player in this draft for us. And this is a case of just production and being an elite pass rusher. There were other edge guys, especially at the combine and pro days, that tested better in terms of athletic traits. But when you see Latu on the field, he has the technique, he has the skills, the tools, and he just gets to the quarterback. He's productive. He's an amazing edge rusher. And he doesn't have top of the charts athleticism, but what he does is that the pass rush tools and arsenal that he has, he combines it to be so effective on the field that I don't want to use the word he can't be blocked. Yes, he can be blocked at times, but throughout the course of the game, he's gonna get a sacks. He's gonna be productive, and just based on his production and how good and elite his techniques are, that's why Lat is the second best player in the draft for us, and he's gonna have a productive NFL career because when you
Absolutely.
come into the game as a rookie and your technique is so sound and your fundamentals, you're gonna be very productive.
Yeah, no, he plays really fast. I'm going to tell you now, 6'5", 265. He's got range, he's got length. This guy moves like a safety. So that's what makes me really impressed. And I know, like, when you see him out in terms of like the combine, there are guys that were perhaps more athletic, but people can look good in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt running on a field. When you turn on the tape, this guy kind of looks better than all of them. He's moving faster than all of them, which means in between the ears, he understands what's happening on the field. And wherever there's a tackle, he's right there. He's the most disruptive on that UCLA defense, meaning he's always around the ball. So he's got really good instincts. He's got the build that people want. You know, he's a real tall body. Like, I kind of compare him to like I'm gonna say he's like a hybrid. Luke Kuechly is, some people say, almost like an outside shot for Hall of Fame. People argue that because he didn't play that long, he's going to have to wait. But then you've got another guy who's come into the league and produced straight away, and that's the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Phillips. This guy is better, in my opinion, because Jalen Phillips is an edge rusher off the edge. I think Latu can play edge, and you can drop him back. He can be that outside backer. He's got the range to chase things. He's faster than you think, but that's because he can dissect plays. You know, he's explosive and he's strong. So he can go down in weight, perhaps. Maybe he can play at 250, increase his speed. But you have options. If you draft this guy, you're going to get someone that can rush the passer and can drop back. My Eagles need linebackers. All right. And I know Howie, like I'm telling you, like there's a bunch of guys I want you to draft. But if you were to take Latu, I'd be more than happy for it. Like, this guy's a stud. I think he's going to go early. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be available after the top 12, because anyone that knows linebackers knows that. And I know people are saying he's a pure edge rusher, but the way things are going, outside linebackers are edge rushers. That's part of what they're expected to be able to do. And I think his build, his frame, he can definitely contribute to any team. So I'm just hoping it's my Eagles. We need linebackers,
You
man. And then we've got our two guys.
you don't need linebackers, man. Like he can drop sometimes, but he's a pass rusher. You got Nolan Smith. You got he's not a bulldog, so Harry wouldn't like him. Harry only likes George like bulldogs. Harry don't mess with Bruins. Bruins are not aggressive enough.
No
It's the
Pac-12
bulldog
players.
mentality.
When it comes to finesse, he goes West Coast. When he comes to football players, he always goes to the South.
Exactly, and the SEC.
SEC. But yeah, no, that's our number 2 right there. Pete, do you have anything else you want to say here, or is it unanimous
Nah,
sort of thing? Like, that's it.
that's it, unanimous. I mean, Latu, best edge in the draft. If you got a top 15 pick, if your team's picking in the top 15, top 12, just turn in the card and he's gonna be very productive. If you let him drop, you're just giving him to good teams, and good teams in the later part of the draft that made the playoffs won't make that mistake. They'll pick him up.
Number 1 guy. You know, I think this was unanimous between the two of us. Sorry if we've mispronounced the first name, but we think we got it. Jason Newton. All right. Illinois, fighting Illinois. Defensive tackle. You know, like he's kind of got like what you want to see. I think what's happening in the NFL now is you're getting a lot of guys chasing after Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. They want interior defensive linemen that can get after the QB. But that's very hard to find. Like don't get me wrong, guys like Chris Jones and Aaron Donald are very rare. So trying to pursue them can kind of like be fool's gold. For example, you've got Quinnen Williams, very good interior lineman, but he's not in their orbit right now, but he's extremely good. So this lets you know how hard it is to hit on these guys. You can get guys that can start on your defense and produce and rotate, but in terms of guys that you're looking to push the offense and provide pressure up the middle, those guys are rare. We think we have one in Dejon Newton, 6'2", 295 pounds, heading towards 300. What I like about him is his wiggle. You know, he moves like he's 260, 250. You know what I mean? Like if you were to use the right type of Snapchat filter and you were to put him in open field, he might look like a big linebacker. You know, so he's special. You know, and I think that's important. Like I said, everyone's trying to find that Aaron Donald, someone with the weight, the strength, but has the ballerina feet. And I think people are excited. I know in terms of like his pro day and metrics wise, he's not going to look great, but turn on the tape. You can see the feet. Like he doesn't even move like an interior defensive lineman. And I think that's what people have to remember. With some guys, you just got to look at the tape, you know? So that's my take on Jason. Like, Pete, man, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, everybody has like their opinion on who their best defensive player in this draft is, and like I said, I agree with you that Jason Newton to me is the best defensive player in this draft. Now it's unfortunate that he didn't test off athletically off the charts at the combine and his pro day, and he had also been battling some injuries throughout the college football season and throughout this draft process, so he may not test out as a well-graded athlete. But Jason Newton is a football player. Like when I say football player, he gets on the field and he tears shit up. That's what he does. He's so disruptive on the defensive line, on the interior. He can be unblockable at times. If he goes to a team that can surround him with the pieces of the kind of defensive players that allow him to make plays, he's going to be exceptional. What I like about him is the explosive up the middle, the ability to disrupt offensive tackles, offensive guards, and put in a shift. And he has something that not a lot of players has, but then when you do have it, it contributes to your team becoming a very successful team at the NFL level, and that is relentless motto. He doesn't stop. He keeps coming, he keeps going until he reaches target or until he disrupts the play, and that's what he's doing. I believe if Jason Newton played in, let's say, a Power 5 school, we are talking about him going in a top 5 picks even.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I see that.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that comes with the draft. Sometimes you gotta be fortunate for a team to fall in love with you if you haven't played for one of these Power 5 schools. But your productiveness and stuff will certainly gather him around the first round. And hey, to all the NFL GMs out there, do not make the mistakes and let Jazon Newton fall into the 20s. Because if he's there 27, Monty Awesome for running up the card and turning that card in.
I can see
He deserves to go in the top 10, top 15 at the minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if Harry took him with 22 because Harry loves defensive linemen.
Yeah, he likes
Harry
D-linemen.
could be in the draft, right? Your GM, I don't understand, but it works though. He could be in the draft. He needs a cornerback, and he'll still take a defensive tackle.
He'll take a defensive tackle. He'll take another defensive tackle. And you know what? When people ask him about Hassan Reddick, like he always says, and he gets annoyed when people ask this question. I think he likes Hassan Reddick. He valued him, but he understood. And remember what he always says: you can't look at this trade in a vacuum. Like every time, which tells me he has a lot of respect for Hassan, and it was a hard choice. He likes him as the player. If he wanted to keep him, he could have, but maybe he's got something in the draft. Maybe he knows, certain teams are sleeping on certain players. I have players I want him to draft, other Georgia Bulldogs, but that's neither here or there. I think we had the wide receivers gone last week.
You won the whole back-to-back national championship Georgia team to be Eagles. That's your whole bias and mantra. Like, could you leave the Bulldogs for somebody else? And anyway, Bulldogs don't like Eagles anyway. There's no relation between a Bulldog and an Eagle. They're two different class of animals. They work separate ways. But Howie gotta have all them Bulldogs.
Yeah, but either way, I think Jazon, you made a really good point, Pete. If he plays for a Power 5 school, these blue bloods, I reckon he goes way higher. He might be a top 6 guy, top 5 guy. Because what's going to happen is those guys on his edge rushers, his linebackers are going to demand respect, which is going to give him more one-on-one opportunities, and he's going to win that. When he was playing for Illinois, like he was the main guy, so they made sure they stopped him. They stopped him from being disrupted, so he could have had more production. But like I said, I think defensive coordinators can see that. I think they're going to make the right choice. I don't see this guy getting outside of the top 15. All right.
Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, in the draft process right now, when you look at all the mock drafts, the first defensive player is expected to be off around pick number 8 with Atlanta Falcons. But with Atlanta, are they going to focus on productive football player or an athletic? Because remember, in this draft process, one of the things that teams tend to do is also draft based on ceiling and athletic profile and what coaches feel like they can do with your traits and your tools and stuff like that. But I think teams also got to realize that when a player is there and they have the traits, the production to match, and they've clearly been the best player on their team with no help, you got to find a way to get him. Because if I'm the Falcons, I'll take Jazon Newton and call it there. But if they don't, another team's going to profit of that. And I do understand the importance of having edge rushers. But I think Arizona let us know that sometimes the interior guys do matter when you're constructing or building your roster. So
yep, Atlanta right now need a culture changer. They need someone that's going to come in there and set the new image for their defense going forward as a team. Maybe they won't get that in the first round, but they might get something in the second, 1 through 10. So just to sort of go over all the numbers. Number 1, Jazon Newton, he's our number 1. 2, Lateo Latu. Okay, Latu. Number 3, Chop Robinson. 4, Dallas Turner. We're looking at number 5, Chris Jenkins. 6, Trevon Sweat. 7, Byron Murphy. 8, Jared Verse. 9, Peyton Wilson. And 10, Junior Colson. So yeah, like I said, offense kind of steal the show this draft, but defense still have some guys. And granted, I think pretty much all the names we've mentioned are probably going to have some kind of impact this year. I think there's too much talent to be ignored here. But yeah, no. Once again, thanks for tuning in. We're probably going to be doing more of this heading forward, but what we'll do is we'll try and highlight a few more things. Keep a lookout. If you haven't turned notifications, please turn them on. A like and a follow always helps as well. We're a young startup channel and we're looking to sort of build ourselves up. Also, like if you have any feedback as well, by all means leave it in the comments section. We do read it and it is important as well. Like I said, this is sort of like the British view on sports. One thing I've realized is that we don't look at sports in a vacuum, a lot like a lot of the American fans do. You guys seem to. This isn't a shot, but you definitely look at things as a singular event. It's very much here and now, but you don't necessarily look at the complete history, especially when it comes to the draft. I'm always looking at players in relation to people that have come in the last few years, not just in this year's draft. I could go on a rant, but I'm not gonna go on a rant. I was gonna link this back to the quarterbacks because I'm telling you, two of those guys are gonna cost people their jobs, and you know who I mean.
Bro, leave them alone. Let's focus. This is about the defensive guys. Show them some love, man. Leave the quarterbacks alone. You never know. I mean, you can predict it, but you never know. At least you can predict it, but you never know. I mean,
Hey, I've
Howard
been
didn't
pretty
pan
good
out
with
like you
quarterbacks,
said.
man. I predicted Russell
Yeah,
Wilson way back
yeah,
when. I predicted
you know,
Zach Wilson last year, man. I told you something was off. I told you this ain't right. And I'm seeing that with two different guys this year. I'm telling you. Look, this is about the defense. Let's keep about the defense, man. I don't want to let them
exactly.
offense
Like I
hijack my
said.
show.
So everybody, please keep an eye out. So we hope to get a mock draft out to you, at least a couple of days before the draft, maybe the day before the draft. And every year going forward, we're just gonna release one mock draft, and most likely will be the day before the draft.
Yeah.
The one and only mock draft from Ballers Across the Pond, which probably might be more realistic than you think.
Yep. Definitely. Definitely. All right. It's over and out from me. Over and out from Pete. We'll catch you soon. Stay safe. We out.
We out.